Hello, thank you for joining us for our third showcase of the 5G Studio. I'm Satish Rao, the Chief Product Officer at New Lab, and it's our department that runs the variety of innovation studios with our public and private partners. I'm here in our beta space in Detroit, Michigan, actually working on a few projects here with some local partners, and so happy to have you all here to learn about what we've been up to lately in the 5G Studio. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. There'll be a variety of speakers and opportunities to ask questions. Feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A window, and we'll answer them as we go throughout the program. We have an interesting format today. We'll start with introductions from myself as well as our partners at Verizon, followed by a brief review of the work done by each of the companies that were in our latest cohort, Cohort 3 in the 5G Studio. And after that, a panel. We'll have our startups, a subject matter expert from Stanley Black & Decker to cover a variety of topics around manufacturing, warehousing, innovation, and of course, where 5G and Edge plays a role. Should be a really great hour, a lot to learn. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So we are New Lab. We do two things. We help early stage technology companies grow, and we are a strategic partner to a variety of large private and public enterprise partners who we engage with through our innovation studios. We also invest in companies, and we have a growing venture studio where we're launching new companies with amazing founders. New Lab HQ is located in the Brooklyn Navy Yard and plays a huge role in what we do across all of our businesses. The ability for frontier technology companies to collaborate in our space at New Lab and test in the 300-acre campus of the Brooklyn Navy Yard provides a lot of real-world environments for us to really validate the great technologies and ideas that come through all the different startups and corporate partners that we work with. The 5G Studio is a great example of this. We partnered with Verizon to look at how to solve a variety of operational challenges and really deliver on interesting growth strategies within a variety of industries and sectors. And we do this by looking at how you take products or develop new products that leverage 5G and edge computing capabilities. Verizon has deployed a 5G edge compute system at the Brooklyn Navy Yard in the New Lab building that has coverage both inside our 84,000 square foot space as well as around our building to allow for outdoor testing as well. And so this has been a very unique capability that's allowed New Lab, Verizon, and these early stage technology companies to work together to understand what happens next if you're able to put your products in development on 5G edge. What does that mean for your technology capability? What does that mean for your business? What does that mean for the way you can access your customers in a new and different way by having these sort of capabilities integrated with what you're doing? And so we've now done this for 3 cohorts, and the success has been just great across the board. We continue to look at broad focus areas, and as you can see, these 3 are quite big. These are themes that are multiplayer. There's no one entity that can own industrial automation, energy, or transportation. It's going to take a collaboration. And we believe that collaboration is between large enterprises and early stage technology companies. And so the focus areas are these 4. This last cohort, more around industrial automation, as you'll see, but certainly as platforms applicable to a variety of sectors that we continue to work on in the 5G Studio. But I first want to introduce Elise Neal, the Senior Vice President at Verizon, the head of the rapidly growing new Business Incubation department in Verizon. Quite a unique department, actually, that I think, compared to what we see across enterprises, and a great partner at New Lab. So Elise, I'd love to hand it over to you to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Satish. Hi, everyone. I'm Elise Neal, and I'm really excited to go through the progress that was made at the 5G Studio in this last cohort. I want to set the stage a little bit and talk to you about why we're so excited about the world of 5G. On the next slide, we'll just introduce to you, if you happen to be living underneath a rock for the last several years, Verizon's been working for the last decade to introduce this brand new capability to the market. Verizon was first in the world to 5G, and we're really excited about this new capability, not because it is the same exact as 4G, but it actually creates new inherent capabilities. What we'll show in the next slide, and for those of you who are not familiar, is when you think about the generational advancement from 1G all the way to 5G, in each of those previous generations, the only real major change that happened with this new cellular standard would be that the pipe got bigger, so you could cram in more data, and the pipe got faster, so you could deliver that data in a shorter amount of time. And so again, between 1, 2, 3, and 4G, those are really the two material advancements that happened. But what we're so excited about with this new 5G spectrum is, in addition to the fattest of the fatty pipes and these blazing fast speeds of the network, we also now introduce 6 new capabilities that we have never been able to participate with before. You see them here on the right, as we call them the 8 currencies of 5G. And I'll maybe just call out a couple of them that might not have dawned on kind of the average consumer or enterprise. One that I'm particularly excited about is the one that we call mobility. If you've ever been in a high-speed train or flown in an airplane or gone, kind of down a fast track, you realize that the handoffs between those cellular components to maintain that sticky connection, to make sure that you have all of the fantastic benefits of the spectrum, they get a little rickety the faster you go. What we now see in 5G is this capability to maintain that sticky connection up to 500 kilometers per hour, or for those of you who are US based, it's about 350 miles per hour. That all of a sudden changes the way that we experience new concepts, new experiences in general, new online properties, etc., as we now think about those advancements kind of coming to life. Another is the capability advancement of connecting devices. So today, in a 4G LTE world on America's most reliable network, which is Verizon, you can now participate and connect about 1,000 devices per square kilometer. And while that is fantastic, and we've all kind of reaped the benefits of those experiences, we all know what happens when we go to a football game, or we go into a stadium, or we go to a concert, and we're having trouble kind of connecting because we're packing in those total number of connected devices, and everyone's wanting to connect and to post and to share all at the same time. In a 5G connected world, that now capability expands into over 1 million devices per square kilometer. In addition to that, you see some of these other, again, inherent benefits that come with the 5G spectrum that really creates additional excitement about the work that we're doing. As we think about the work that happened here in the 5G studio, it marries really nicely to what we do as a business. I have the unique pleasure of managing new business incubation at Verizon. And in that, what we do is we really serve to build these software solutions that will help accelerate and propel the 5G future. I cannot stress enough, this is a once in a generation opportunity. About every 10 years, a new spectrum is introduced. And so as we think about shaping that ecosystem, playing a role for Verizon, our partners, our customers, and our consumers, and all together, we believe that through new business incubation and our efforts around robotic automation for both terrestrial and aerial robotics, we think about it for industrial IoT, the work we're doing in location intelligence, the work we're doing in sensor fusion, and a wide variety of other areas, make our partnership with New Lab a really great mix. We know that Verizon and 5G is not the end all be all, that will be one component in an ecosystem of kind of development opportunities. And so we always seek to wrap our arms around the ecosystem and those bright minds with frontier technology to figure out, how can we think better? How can we think differently? How can we embrace what's happening in innovation more broadly? And the partnership with New Lab and our 5G studio and these fantastic startups that you'll hear from today are just a small sample of the work that we do in order to propel that. So Satish, without further ado, I'll turn it back over to you to introduce our amazing frontier tech teams.
Thank you, Elise. And you said a lot of keywords there that I think are going to come up in the panelist discussion later. But working with New Business Incubation team has been just really interesting and exciting to see their way of thinking, looking at the use case, looking at the problem in front of you, and how to apply really advanced technologies. It's been a really great partnership, and I appreciate that. And so up next is the cohort. So we'll start with Sixdof Space. We'll kick us off, Cloney Lieberman.
Let me try that again. Sorry, I was muted. I'm Cloney Lieberman, one of the founding partners of Sixdof Space, and I'm happy to be with you guys.
Cloney seems to be having some technical difficulties, so let's fast forward to Paul Sun from Iron Young, while Cloney fixes his internet connection there.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Sun from Iron Yuan, the CEO for Iron Yuan. I'll be sharing with some of the work that we've done in the applying artificial intelligence in the space of video analytics, especially for the warehouse type application. We had an opportunity to set up our system at the new lab, and several things that we want to leverage on the great 5G networks that's been provided in the facility. The first one is we want to connect our AI video analytics system actually residing in the MEC Verizon data center. So we want to achieve very low latency and very high throughput with the live video stream that's been set up by the surveillance camera system. And so the couple of things that we want to do is one is to detect, analyze, and automatically alert of any kind of security breaches in a warehouse or facility. So it could be a person with a particular type of objects, or if they don't have a proper safety attire, hard hat, safety vest. And in terms of the actual results that we're able to measure, there's no doubt that the 5G, what we're really excited is now with as the 5G get rolled out into across the country, the one of the key missing part in terms of for our software application, because it's real-time video based, the latency, the big pipe, and the pushing it down to the last 100 feet or even down to the last 10 feet. And that's crucially important for our software application to run. So we are able to get the system running live, deployed, and getting the first taste of the what a 5G network can provide. So it's quite exciting. So on to the next slide. I think there's a video that we want to show the audience of what we can achieve with a 5G network. So this is actually a live recording. So for example, the system can detect all sorts of objects. Person with riding on a bike, as you can see on here. Obviously, that's probably not allowed in most warehouse. And a person with a backpack, a person. It can also be person with a weapon, with any kind of unapproved objects in a facility. So all of those can be triggered in real time and provide a feedback to the area administrator or the management facility personnel. Okay, thank you. That's my overview of the system that we've deployed.
Oh, thanks for that. So one question, a question from the audience is what are the types of objects typically you are detecting for your customers right now?
So currently we're mostly in the security and the safety. So for example, our customers are ESPN, some of the largest companies deploying this in sports stadium, at banks, at schools, including at shipyards for safety. So yeah, the artificial intelligence, the video analytics over the past 2-3 years really starting to get wide acceptance in the industry, especially in the security and safety. I think the industrial, the warehouse type application is just the next wave that will happen.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Paul. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Up next is Abhinav Das from Orangewood Labs.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Satish, for inviting us over and helping us do this. Next slide, please. Yes. So we are Orangewood Labs. We are designing and building industrial robotic arms, which are lower in cost. And the way we achieve this is by using commoditized components and machine learning to augment for better accuracy. Before coming to New Lab and doing this, we were approached last year by one of the large one of the largest retail chains in US to help us build a solution for them where we could make an automated shopping cart, but we couldn't do it at the time because the latency was too high and we were trying to use Wi-Fi. What got us really excited was the fact that you are able to achieve crazy low latencies, and that just makes us to explore some of these things which were not possible even last year, before we got to know something like this exists. One of the other things which we have also tried doing is to move compute to the servers and then just make the hardware itself even lower cost. So we were really excited to do this. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, there's a video which we'd love to show you, what we did here. So we were able to teleoperate this robotic arm, on the mech server itself. And we were also able to do, we were also able to train our machine learning model on the server itself. And we're very, very excited to take this forward and start using it on some of our customer deployments. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Abhinav, thanks for that. So one question to you, or a quick question here is what is an ideal customer for you? I mean, this is clearly an advanced system, but you're trying to make it sort of more for the generalist, I guess. So what is an ideal customer? And then the next question will be about the infrastructure behind that customer. But I want to start with that.
Yeah. So right now we are looking at customers who are facing problems with the with not having enough workers in their factories. We have deployed from doing powder coating. Right now we are doing a painting, an industrial painting customer, and then we are also working with some e-commerce companies for doing a pick and place packaging kind of an application. So it's actually a little diverse right now. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and then the next question in terms of like the 5G edge compute side, I'm going to tie it in with a question that came from the audience, is how do you see cost savings in your product, I guess, if you're incorporating machine learning with 5G edge? What does that mean in terms of what you can offer to your customers in terms of pricing and then maybe even capability, but definitely in terms of cost?
Yeah, so what happens is there's some amount of compute we have to put on the hardware itself. And the moment we are able to, offload it to the server, and especially, when you have like a swarm of 20 robots working in like a warehouse or a factory, it makes a lot of sense to just, have like a shared compute resource rather than, having it on every device. Now, all of this has just become possible because we got to know, okay, something like this, actually exists. So we're still calculating, how much it can be, but I'm very sure that's going to be significant. It can definitely help us to bring the cost down significantly of the hardware devices.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll talk to you more in the panel, but thanks for the presentation.
Thanks.
All right. Next is Atle Timenez from Wilme.
Hi, everybody. My name is Atle Timenez. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Wilme. We are a robotics company, an IT company based in Oslo and Norway, and we have developed and patented the world's first autonomous wheel. And with a wheel, you can move whatever you want indoor, meaning that you don't have to change your design or form factor. If you want to move something, you can place over a wheel on it, and then you can move it from A to B or the way you want to do it. And today we're using Wi-Fi, but we've been ready for 5G for a long time. And the goal we had when we went to New Lab was to see if it's possible to computing to mobile edge computing, and that in that way reduce the cost. And what is also very important for us, because we mainly work in warehouses and in logistics supply chain and factory floors, is of course the certifications that we had to hold, which is the safety. And we're competing against AGVs and AMRs. And what we wanted to see is that our sensor slider and everything was able to work the way we wanted using 5G, and also test mapping, and also just see that the safety avoidance working as it should. And here you can see a short video with the wheels moving around in the new lab. And what we were able to do that was we had a very low latency, meaning that we could use the MEC. And we were also able to update the map while moving around, and also do all the object avoidance and also people avoidance and so on. And what I think is the most important here is that by using the 5G, it opens up a lot of new use cases, and not just reducing cost, but using AI and ML to make smarter processes, find out weak points and so on, bottlenecks, and use a variation of technology together. So very, very good experience with the 5G. Okay, thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, that was fun to watch that cargo move around, very, very skillfully and artfully in the new lab space. And so a question from the audience, which I was going to ask as well, is what do this looks like wide number of applications, but what is the target market today? Are you seeing some acute sort of attraction within a certain customer segment? If you can speak more about that.
Yeah, we're mainly working with blue chip companies in US and Germany, and that is in warehouse, and it's also in logistics, supply chain, and factory floors. But we also do some healthcare business in Norway, use it in hospitals to move things around. So that is our main market today.
And if the enterprise clients you're working with have 5G in place and have an edge compute sort of system, how does that change what you can offer them as a vendor?
That is a lot. I think because we have a platform for what we'll say insights and intelligence, meaning that if you produce cars, we work with companies that are doing that, and we can find out easily if the process is as good as they should be, or if there's some weak point, bottleneck, and why is there a difference between days, weeks, months, and everything. You can start planning in a different way.
Amazing. Great. Okay, well, we'll have a chance to talk to you more about that during the panel.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we got Cloney back from Sixdof.
Hi, I'm back, and hopefully a smoother connection this time. So if you can go to the next slide. Here at Sixdof, we've developed an optical tracking technology, which rather than the way a normal optical tracking works, where you have a camera and you process all the video image, we have an optical component that compresses the image data down to a very simple signature. It reduces the amount of data that one needs to process and allows us to track both the position and orientation of our sensor with very, very good accuracy, very high speed, and several hundred times a second. And what this has enabled us to do is, since we've reduced the amount of data that needs to be processed by several orders of magnitude, we can now envision transferring all our data up over a 5G network to a centralized computer. And that's what we came to do at the New Lab Horizon Space, to show that we could accomplish this. And what we've done is we've placed our targets. These are little infrared beacons. You can see a picture of them here at the bottom right, up in the ceiling. And our system localizes itself against the positions of these beacons. And by transmitting this data over the network, we can calculate our position and our orientation and do this in real time. And this enables us to move all the processing away from the sensor itself, which is a tremendous potential cost savings, and allow us to deploy a whole bunch of these trackers and sensors in a large space like a warehouse and do all the processing up at the edge computer. Now, if we go to the next slide, we have a video here showing our test setup here, where we took two of our sensors. That's a picture of our little beacon up on the ceiling there and at the infrared. And we placed our sensors on these little robotic cars with a little 5G antenna sitting on each one and drove them around. And these sensors are outputting the raw data over the 5G network to the edge computer in real time. And this visual display here is being processed. Well, it's already completed there, but it was showing the position and the direction of each of the, we're running it through again, each of those cars as they were driving around on the floor. And you can actually see as they approached each other, it flashed out some collision avoidance warnings. We'll see it up in a second here as it comes back. As the two systems approach, here on the screen, we see those little arrows showing their movement and their position. And the system can warn you in the case of a potential collision and output that data. Again, this is all over the 5G network. The processing is done on the edge computer, and the visualization and data is streamed back over the network to some control computer or centralized system that the operator is using. We were able to demonstrate very accurate positioning in the order of several centimeters over a fairly large space. And we're hopeful that this will be very useful for deploying in a range of large warehouse and industrial applications. Thank you.
Awesome, Cloney. So that last statement that you made, I think that's a great question to come back to you is what does a future state in terms of warehouse management systems and that integration look like? Can you describe what it would look like integrating with other sensors, perhaps AMRs, or just the management of the warehouse in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. The optical sensor we have requires some infrastructure to be set up in the warehouse. We do have to place these infrared beacons, and they do require line of sight, but this is a fairly low cost, one-time expense. And we envision possibly even integrating these with the standard light fixtures that would be put up in the newly designed warehouse. And once you have that infrastructure in place, our very simple sensors can localize themselves at any point in the factory. It's not just a relative motion. It knows exactly where it is. It can output that position over a network and allow you to very simply place these sensors on any moving objects you have, whether they're autonomous vehicles or robots or possibly even drones that are moving around inside the warehouse, and enable you to deploy over a large space much cheaper than you can with existing technologies.
What about in terms of scale? Is this a system that doesn't require, in terms of the space, the square footage as it goes up? How does that scale the number of sensors needed from your products?
The sensors themselves are independent. Each sensor is just looking up at the beacons placed on the ceiling and localizing against it. Each one of these beacons is actually putting out a unique code, and you could have thousands of them potentially scattered across a very large space. And the sensor, once it has a map, a software map of where each of these beacons is located, it would always know where it is. So potentially scale to very large indoor spaces without any problem.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun seeing that data visualized on the screen. I was standing behind you folks, I think, right before that video was shot. So it's a great, really nice to see that in action.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to move to our panelists. Let's see if we get all our video screens turned on here. All the familiar faces coming back. The new face is Jane Arnold, VP of Global SPS Strategy and Industry 4.0 Execution at Stanley Black & Decker. Jane, that's a killer title. I'm jealous of that one, but I think we overdid it with our subject matter expert this time. Jane's been working on a variety of innovation, very relevant to what we're talking about here, and implementing those at Stanley Black & Decker. So it should be a great addition to the panel here. Elise, I'm going to start with you to kick us off. And so, you know, we've looked out into the world, and certainly there's a variety of acute supply chain logistics problems we're seeing currently today. But the general kind of trend as we're seeing is that manufacturing as a percent of US GDP has gone down over the last 40 years. That's true. And so what we have is a set of headwinds, but also a set of opportunities as it comes to innovation in manufacturing specifically. So how do you look at that? Like, how do you look at the headwinds you're trying to solve for, and at the same time, what are the opportunities? And maybe we can use that material to kick off the rest of the discussion.
Sure. Yeah. As we, as I like scurried to get all of my Christmas presents for my children, I think as consumers, we are all now very acutely aware of the supply chain, which I'm not sure those two words would have normally come up in my vernacular with my friends outside of work. But we've definitely felt over the last couple of years the pinch of what happens when it doesn't work properly. When we think about advancing the supply chain and what the future of opportunity is, there really are, I think, three big categories of headwinds. The first is that there's no data transparency. And so between kind of the end-to-end value chain from kind of the producer of good or even the raw materials all the way to the end consumer about what is bought, whether it's in perfect quality, whether or not they're satisfied, kind of that end-to-end data transparency is not happening in any meaningful way today. So those movements when you have a ship stuck in the Suez, or when you have a shortage of, microchips or whatever that might be, those become problems. The second, I think, is just generally automation, which is kind of a big blobby word. But when we think about the supply chain, it is incredibly manual today. So when we talk to customers, they're still using spreadsheets, like individual writing with like steno pads to kind of manage their inventory in and out. As you think about everything from, a very large fast food chain that literally checks their inventory kind of visually, and then they're missing maybe their hamburger patties or their French fries, there just is very little automation. And so when you think about data transparency, that then when you have that, then breeds into kind of automation opportunities. And then I think the last is one that, hopefully we can, continue to solve together along with the first two, is the labor shortage. There just are not enough hands and feet in order for the demand that we have. And so as we think about those headwinds, I think the balance to that is the opportunity of how do we think about solving that and creating kind of grease in the wheels for the end-to-end global value chain and supply chains as we think about that for our customers. First, I think there's a huge opportunity to move from merely connecting your devices inside your factories, your warehouses, your fleet of vehicles, your machines, et cetera. Today, they're just kind of being connected and that data is sitting in a silo. How do we kind of unleash it and unlock it so that that data transparency can happen, and move from merely connecting your devices into automating your processes, and then from automating your processes into eventually full autonomy. And we saw some fantastic examples kind of each of those steps along the way. I think the other piece that we're really spending a lot of time working on is robotics. We see if we can answer what is happening, where it's happening, we can also inform how it should happen. And these kind of micro decisions that need to happen in a living, breathing infrastructure that is self-performing, self-healing, kind of self-orchestrating to match the right product with the right kind of execution of service. We see those big opportunities, and 5G is kind of an underpinning underneath each of those components. But we need frontier technology. We need the work that my team is doing in software. We need great partners like Black & Decker to kind of come alongside us. So all hope is not lost, Satish. It's going to be an exciting future.
Absolutely. And so I'm going, that was a great start of a lot of topics we can cover there. So Jane, I'm going to turn to you and just double click on one thing that Lisa said there, which is this idea of starting with connecting systems together, moving towards automating some processes on your way to full automation as a way of opportunity, customized products, and also maybe getting past some of these headwinds. So where is Stanley Black & Decker in that sort of roadmap, that journey? And maybe specifically, what are the types of innovation you're focusing on to achieve that?
So Stanley Black & Decker is actually a very interesting company. I've enjoyed working for them this past year. On the product end, they've done a lot of development on connecting tools and things like that, and it's very fascinating for me. In manufacturing, when I hear Elisa speak, it really resonates, because having that transparency is really key. Now, we've done some fascinating things on a cell level for robotics and automation. Very, very interesting, and I love going to the factory to see what we've done. But what we're not doing is actually taking that data in every case and doing something additional with it. And I think that's where I see 5G that could maybe enable us. Typically or historically, hardwired connection to our assets was the most reliable, but it's also the most expensive. And as we want to move things around and be more efficient with our lean setup, having an alternative like 5G is better from an expense standpoint, and it's also much more reliable than Wi-Fi. And when I saw that 99.99% reliability, I was like, yes. And of course, focusing on ESG, you know, that's also compelling. We need to count the energy to see how much it saved, but I think that that's an interesting topic as well. But I see from the topics all covered today, really there's something that everyone brings to the table that we're interested in exploring.
Yeah, that's interesting. I should say the panelists too. I mean, feel free to jump in. I think you all are working and exactly have something to contribute here. But I would say first, you know, this cohort, if you think about this, is what we're seeing as a portfolio of capabilities that can really change the way an entire production process works, for example. So Atle, I'll turn to you first in terms of Wilmy. You know, again, this thread of automating a sort of a singular process or sort of path of movement of goods within a warehouse. How do you sell your customers on a vision in terms of being able to use that data, being able to create more transparency in their production? What is the pitch you give to your customers today?
The pitch is, I mean, it's kind of really simple, actually. I mean, there is a shortage of labor in general. That is the first starting point, I think. And the second is that the most you're doing when you want to automate is that, I mean, you do exactly the same thing all over again. And so that is the second thing you can easily do. And then the third point is that then you can, when you control those 2 points, then you can start to improve. So then you can start to use your data. And I think the most easiest way I can do it is to give an example from a hospital. In a hospital today, they don't know where the equipment are. So they don't know where the beds are, they don't know where the equipment are, and so. So if I repeat the word saying beforehand that if you think about what you have, then you control where it is. And then you can, the next question, where should it be? And then if you control what you have, then you of course can send it where it should be. And then you also can start planning to use it better in the future. So that is the 3 points, what I think is very, very central.
Yeah, and Colonia, on that aspect, like being able to track down to a very acute level or tight level within an environment, that's what Atle is saying. Tony, you must see the same thing as well. Perhaps you can speak more on the value customers are seeing of being able to do that.
Certainly. Almost everybody wants to know where their devices are. I'm not talking about where a pencil is and little RFID tag, but if you have equipment that moves around and a big factory, you want to know where it is, you want to be able to locate it. Both from a safety issue, if something's autonomously moving, you want to know that it's doing what it's meant to. And just as you reposition equipment, their warehouse management systems want to know where everything is. And there are quite a few different systems out there that can do this or answer different aspects of it. But we're looking at something where you want to be able to get an overview of the entire space and just track any item you want relatively cheaply and accurately and know where it is at all times without having to, spend huge amounts of infrastructure tagging things. So we believe there's a tremendous market for this going forward.
Yeah, and Jane, do you have a sense of, I mean, this feels like a problem everyone wants to solve and have. Do you have a sense of what that really means in terms of efficiencies or cost savings or your ability to build new products? How does that bubble up to like the macro level for you?
So what I see from an efficiency and cost saving standpoint is that if you have a reliable infrastructure in place, you can really do anything. And when we start looking at how do we enable these technologies and do it, I see long term it's gonna be more reliable and be more robust for all of our applications.
Yeah, Elise, I imagine you hear the same thing from your other enterprise partners.
Yeah, all the time. I think we have mixed hardware from different OEMs, all of which provide vertically integrated solutions, none of which talk to each other. So there's no interconnectivity, to Jane's point, but there's also no interoperability either. And so that requires every manufacturer, every factory floor manager to also now be an expert in AI and data science. That's a dumb idea. That's like, they're just, I think there's a better way to do it and a more efficient way to do it. And so when we think about, kind of these macro opportunities that we have to pull these components together so that we can create informed decisions on, a millisecond basis becomes really powerful. I love what Jane said, and we hear it constantly from customers. if I'm going to connect all my hardware, if I'm going to connect my machines, I'm going to connect my robots, I'm going to connect my humans, if that connectivity goes down, or God forbid there's a bad actor that comes in, that's a non-starter. So now what we have are, traditionally wired connections that don't provide the flexibility that we need for mobility and a wide variety of other components. And now kind of bringing in this new opportunity that we have to secure, to create resiliency kind of inside the connectivity fabric in and of itself, and to introduce some of this new frontier technology that we believe is really going to advance the cause and the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. And I think Paul, like, we're talking about location and being able to track objects and connectivity, but, in terms of your side, in terms of vision, how do you see customers using your product as it relates to what we're talking about here in terms of automation and connecting systems together?
In what we do in the security and safety space, what we like to use the term AI 2.0. So compared to the 5.0 on the wireless world, the same kind of evolution is starting to happen. It's no longer about basic object detection on using AI analytics. And now we're very much into the expert domain of a very specific vertical. For example, warehouse. It's not just about identifying the forklift truck or a person with a backpack or packages being dropped on the floor, but it's actually our software actually embed expert domain know-how of a warehouse personnel. So what does that mean? For example, embedding AI capability to actually read QR codes that you can do potentially even down to daily inventory controls to a person on a safety side standing too close to a moving forklift truck for safety alerts, prevent safety violations, to smoke and fire, and even potential like really security of weapon detections. And so all of those, once you integrated into our platform referred to as Video and AI 2.0, that enables the application to be a shrink wrap, plug and play, exactly to Al's point that you don't want any kind of customization configuration. The real AI needs to literally drop into an environment, plug and play, and operate in real time. And I think that is the vision that we see as we continue to push the AI frontier from AI 2.0, where we are at today, to over the next several years. I'm sure it will be AI 3.0 and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes back to Jane's point around strong infrastructure. You can do anything as you go to full automation. The infrastructure of safety needs to go up and up and up as well. It sounds like that's what Iron Gun is certainly a thread to be involved in. So that's great. I'm gonna move to a different section here. So the word labor and labor shortage came up in this first discussion. So I kind of want to tease that a little bit, talk about the human sort of in the production and how their roles are improving or changing. And so traditionally manufacturing, warehousing, as we know, has focused on regions where labor pricing is low, right? But now we see shortages everywhere. We see aging workforces across a variety of sectors. I was visiting a retail partner's production facility recently, still 100% manual as it relates to picking and packing, for example. And so I'd love to turn the discussion on how everything we're doing here is improving this idea of labor shortages and sort of the life of the worker in these fields. So Abhinav, I'm going to turn to you first. How does your product improve the way a worker can really deliver on a good that they're creating?
Yeah, I was really surprised by talking to, so we were doing like a demo in a factory in India where, people actually make very low wages. And, the first reaction was, okay, for a worker that I'm scared, it might take my job. But the second thing was that, I want to learn this so that, I don't have to like do something which is extremely repetitive, again and again for the next 5 years of my life. And this is a trend which we've been seeing across the world. Whichever customer we have talked to, this is what they keep telling us. Like, workers don't want to like do more blue collar jobs. And this is like a trend which, we've seen across. One of the things is like, we see robots as tools. These are like the better tools. These are the tools which are going to be used now and 10 years down the line. So tools have always made humanity better in ways, and this is what robotics is going to do. Our work is about improving lives of workers in general. So this is how I'd like to put it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because you're creating a product that is allows high mix, high configurability, allows one to make new product features, new functionalities more quickly, which then pulls out the talents of a workforce. And so Jane, back to you. Like, how's the innovation that you're working on allow you to do new products features more quickly? How is it pulling a diversified set of talents from your workforce?
Well, it's really interesting. The timing is perfect, because advanced manufacturing has recently joined forces with workforce readiness at Stanley Black & Decker. And the intent is to improve technology at the sites and automation and robotics, while upskilling the workforce so that we can make their jobs more interesting and more challenging as well. We do see that the people don't like being the robot. That is absolutely true, but they are interested and fascinated to learn what can they do more and better. And as we improve technology, we're closely following that, lockstep with workforce readiness and making those changes. So I think what you said is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I think I think in making these robotic systems more configurable, we're seeing 5G and Edge being able to really kind of deploy that. So Elise, is that something that you see from your partners, like that ability to use their existing systems in kind of different ways?
Yeah, we are talking, when you go and you approach a customer and you're like, I've got a great idea. How about you completely close down your factory and we're going to make you a new factory and we're going to replace everything and it's going to be great. This idea of ripping and replacing is a complete non-starter for both financially where we are as an industry, as well as it's just too disruptive. And so we've been talking a lot with customers about how might we think differently about forward compatibility? How do we create a system or a series of systems and infrastructure that allow you the flexibility that you need to adapt? And traditionally what that has meant is that we're taking hardware-based tools. We're taking a ground robot that might be a goods delivery piece where maybe it has a pallet and it has a shelf. And we're now attaching sensors to that so that it also can collect data and do inventory management. We're just adding new software applications with small bits of hardware into their existing infrastructure that allow them to basically stretch that TCO model so that the return on investment is more immediate. We know today that our major manufacturing customers are not interested in a 4 to 5 year ROI, that they need that to be shortened to 12 to 18 months, which means that we have an opportunity to think differently about how we deploy our software, how do we make it malleable for the future, how do we protect it for this forward compatibility, and just create that adaptation that's needed in business. We know what we know today, but none of us here on the call, including myself and everyone at Verizon, we don't know what the future holds. That's why we're exploring together. That's why we're doing these opportunities with the studio to say, how might we think differently about these capabilities? And so even as we deploy new solutions as well, we need to make sure that there is some bend and flex into those for customers so that they can kind of create that forward compatibility that we talked about.
Yeah, that's the forward compatibility. That's a great word. I'm going to use that on the next one. So I'll tell you, I think that's teed up for you perfectly. I imagine as you approach a customer, you're pitching a vision of the future, but there's something that's near term today. Like as Elise said, you're not expecting the entire configuration of a warehouse to change. You're not replacing workforce in any sort of way. This is something you can use tomorrow, and as you move forward. So how do you position that to your partners and your customers?
I think there's two ways. I love the conversation around labor in general as we think about how do we honor and respect the human body? How do we do what we were physically built to do? Abhinav talked about repetitive work, and so we've been doing a lot with our customers to really study ergonomic impacts when you move to robotic workforces for repetitive behaviors. We've also looked at upskilling workers, which Jane also talked about. How do we think about this kind of return to work, kind of work forward like kind of context, as well as kind of understanding what still needs to happen on the line? I think as human beings, we want to push ourselves and stretch ourselves. We want to learn new skills. We're curious about the future. And as we bring these solutions, we know that we can continue with our partners to talk about kind of how do we help them propel their business, not just actually in the production of materials, but for their workplace culture in general. And so, you know, when I think about what we're doing to kind of partner alongside those customers, a lot of it is live implementations. We're spending time with them. We're going shoulder to shoulder on the manufacturing floor. We've got some great big announcements that are happening here towards the end of the year with a major partner for their brand new smart factory. And just looking at kind of new ways to do it. I'll also do a complete shameless plug, which is next week, the new Business Incubation team is launching a brand new white paper around Industry 4.0 in labor. And we set out to ask 75 key customers kind of what are some of these hypotheses that we have, we've kind of put out there around the labor shortage and the impact from Industry 4.0 technology, talking about adoption, et cetera. So I'll say to you, Satish, there's not an easy answer. It's a very open-ended question. And we're just going to navigate it together as an industry.
No, it feels like the right approach. And Atle, I think how does what Elise was describing, it sounds like some of that must have been in your product design for WheelMe. And so perhaps you can kind of hear what Elise just said and how that sort of fed the way you design your product and how it serves the customers today, near term versus long term.
Okay, could you just repeat short?
So this idea of the product not necessarily requiring the enterprise customer to change everything they're doing on day one.
Yeah.
You know, it must have been part of your product design, it seems.
That is very important, and that is I think that is maybe the most important in general when you go to automation. And how I look at it is that the most important is flexibility, and you don't have to change anything, and you should be able to integrate or set up your project quick and scale it the way you want. And in that way, I think 5G is a key, because having the ability to change and share data and use it, that will be a key for successful automation in the future. And here I think 5G is, I mean, it's opened up a lot of new possibilities.
Nice, great. And so I'd love to spend the last 5 minutes or so talking about, you know, what we're seeing today from this cohort is a portfolio of amazing advanced technologies. They're individually validating those technologies with initial customers in the field. We validate them to some degree in the studio. But if you're Jane, let's start with you first. If you're Stanley Black & Decker, you know, as these sort of automation, sensors, robotic systems kind of proliferate, this is a question from the audience I'm taking. How do you look at sort of homogenizing this sort of heterogeneous portfolio of technologies? Is that a friction in and of itself for Stanley Black & Decker, for example?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a friction. It's not ideal, of course, but we're actually at each shop floor trying to bring all of the assets together, all the data together in one location and timestamp it there as a source of truth, regardless of how it's communicating. Now, with 5G, I think it opens up some different potential there with security and safety that we're very interested in. And I need to think about it further to decide how can we best leverage it. I can see all the use cases, but if we actually maybe not rip and replace, but actually make it the primary data communication source, then we'll have to change the way we're working. And I think it's quite fascinating to look at that.
And Elise, I think that's exactly one of the value adds of what MBI, what we're trying to do at New Lab, is this idea of being able to plug in all these different technologies in a way that's really meaningful individually, but then together much stronger. So perhaps you can speak more about that.
Yeah, this is a really big part of the work that we're doing. We have an opportunity to place several different bets inside of the portfolio as we think about new businesses and new ventures that Verizon wants to kind of own and operate. And so whether that's aerial robotics, ground robotics, sensor intelligence, location components, et cetera, we know that there will be customers who want to buy one piece of it, that they need one product to solve kind of that widget problem. But we also know that there are larger ecosystem opportunities where Verizon, through the 5G connectivity, can create that backbone for orchestration to basically create this dynamic matched right product, right set of tools. And I think we've heard it several times on the panel today, with high security and high reliability. And so, but it's not just about a closed ecosystem. It's not about a walled garden. It's about how do we, again, kind of mix and match and add partners so that the customer gets what they need, but that interoperability, that interconnectivity is built in by design from the start. I think that's where our future is going, but it's going to take us a while to get there. Each of our we're talking about Industry 4.0 today. The vast majority of manufacturers in the United States are in like 1.5, I wouldn't even say 2. And so as we kind of shepherd this digitization of this industry, again, I think we're going to see a lot of mixing and matching. We think the future is an orchestrated one where these products and services live and breathe and dynamically connect and self-adapt. It's going to take a little while to get there. There's not enough software out there. There's not enough 5G devices, but that's a part of the opportunity of being right on the forefront of a brand new revolution for a brand new set of connectivity spectrum.
Amazing. Yeah, I really felt like, this cohort, like it felt like all the pieces coming together on one thing, along with the Verizon. For someone like a Stanley Black & Decker, like I feel like, we're moving to this world where it needs to be multiple contributors to get to this future state that we're talking about in terms of manufacturing, warehouse inventory, and the other topics we're working on in the studio as well. And so I want to close with just saying a big thanks to the cohort that participated in this studio. It was really exciting to see the pilots in action as well. To the audience out there, the 5G studio is a great opportunity, not just for early stage technology companies that come and understand how 5G edge can really lead to new products and market opportunities. It's a really advantage for enterprise partners to join as well, who bring a variety of interesting use cases that we can likely, have interesting solutions and partnerships for and test them at our New Lab facility in Brooklyn, New York. And so feel free to email us at 5gstudio@newlab.com if you want to learn more. And I'll turn back to Elise for any final words.
I think my final words are, if you do not feel excitement coming off of this webinar, we're really excited about the future. The reality is, again, the invitation is yours. We want to get your hands on your keyboards to partner with us. So whether you are a partner, a startup, a frontier technology company, a customer, or someone who's really looking to kind of learn a little bit more about this landscape, we want to just invite you in this journey along with us. I also want to say a huge thank you to our friends at New Lab and to each of those startups who participated in our cohort. The pleasure is all ours. We've learned a tremendous amount partnering with you, and we look forward to the future together.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for participating, and thanks for the audience for your questions and listening in, and you'll be hearing from us again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.